Coming up on Finding G-Spots, we take Qatar all the way from Frankfurt to Adelaide. Are the Q suites all they're cracked up to be still? Find out in today's episode. Welcome back to Finding G-Spots, everyone. From wherever you're watching, thanks for joining us on our little journey. We're going to review the Qatar Q suites from Frankfurt in Germany all the way to Adelaide in Australia, which we flew back on. This review is a couple of weeks late. Unfortunately, when I got back to Australia, I had a little cold for a week or so, which knocked me out. Anyway, our journey begins in Frankfurt, which was our last place we stayed at in Germany. And if you ever get the chance to go to the Palm Gardens in Frankfurt, we can definitely recommend it. It's a fantastic place to visit. So we enjoyed that. Now, while we were in Frankfurt, we also stayed at the Hyatt, which was right there at the airport. So if you are interested in what the Hyatt there is like at Frankfurt Airport, or you need a hotel to stay at near the airport while you're there, well, stay tuned, because in a few weeks' time, hopefully, we will do a review on this hotel as well. So now on to the flight. Now, Iris and I were not particularly huge fans of Frankfurt Airport. The last few times we've been through there, we've found it a little bit slow to get through. It's not a very well organised airport. And look, I'm really sorry. It just hasn't been enjoyable us the last few times. So we're going to try and avoid that airport in the future if we can. Now, there's a shared lounge. It's called the Priority Lounge. And look, what can I say about it? They had a small selection of food and drinks on offer. It was clean. However, it was just very ordinary, I would say. Absolutely nothing too special to sit there at all. It was a little bit warm inside the lounge. I will say it was very nice and clean. You can see here the mail facilities are also nice and clean. In all honesty, we only stayed there for about half an hour, and then we sat here in this area, which is only a short walk from the lounge, and which had these nice recliner seats, and that was far more comfortable. And that's all I can really say about that. We also had to wait half an hour before we were actually able to board the plane as well. So for some reason there was quite a delay before we were even able to get onto the plane. But anyway, onto the flight itself. So the first leg of our journey from Frankfurt to Doha, with Qatar Airways, it's about 5 hours and 55 minutes, so just under 6 hours. And again, we've got a Q suite. Luckily we're on the Boeing 777-300ER. I was in seat 3A and my wife in seat 4B, which were great seats. So if you saw our review coming the other way, you'll already be a little bit familiar with the Q suites. So here's a quick look at them anyway. So 3A, and it's exactly the same layout as the plane which I took. You've got a little hook and a light here on the left hand side of my seat. Now my wife's seat is facing the other way, and you do get a little sort of what can I say? It's like a little protection kit when you get onto the plane straight away, in addition to the other stuff that they give you. So you get like a mask, some gel for cleaning, and so on. And I thought that was quite a nice touch. Now, as you know, I'm a huge fan of the Qatar entertainment system. I find they have like a very extensive range of movies, TVs, and also some audio stuff you can listen to. And you can also have the map of the plane going on it as well. So really a great selection, and the interface is absolutely super fast. So I do love that. Now you've got the tray table under here which folds out. It's quite a large table, and of course you use that later on when you're dining, and it really makes for a nice dining experience because it's so large. Then of course you've got the footrest, and the bed folds out into a flat bed as normal. I just have to say I do like these side seats as well on Qatar. They are great. You know, you don't always have to sit next to your partner. Now you've got some non-branded headphones and some little water in there as well. Little storage area you can put some stuff as well. Now here's a quick look again, so I'll just go over again. You've got some power there. They don't have USB-C, it's only USB-A, and you've got the port there for the headphones and all the seat controls. and then you've got a little control there you can use for the entertainment system. Now you do get a nice welcome drink, which was good, and because we had to actually wait around for quite a while on the tarmac, I checked out the menu. You can have a look at some of the stuff here on the menu. As usual, high quality and a great range of foods. Now, as I mentioned, for some reason the plane was delayed both boarding and on the tarmac, so we actually waited around probably a good another half an hour, 45 minutes on the tarmac before we took off, and they seldom give you reasons for this, so again we had no idea why. But I have to say, you know, if you're in a Q suite, there's pretty much no better place to be on a plane if you get delayed and you have to hang around, because it's very comfortable. You can go to the toilet if you need to, there's drinks, and you can just sit and watch something if you want, you can read, you can do whatever you want. So being delayed is not really that much of an issue. Okay, so let's move on to the food. So we had a little entree there. I think it was a prawn and some sort of dip. And one of my favorites, of course, is the Arabic mezza. Both my wife and I love the Arabic mezza. And then for mains, I had lobster again. And I have to say they do a really great job with lobster on Qatar. And then for dessert, coffee and these lovely Laderach chocolates, which I think are Swiss chocolates. So that was beautiful. And now I just enjoy looking out the window and just seeing the scenery of some of the countries that we fly over. So there we were, and we arrived at Hamad International Airport, which I have to say is a fantastic airport. It's well thought out. We did have to walk quite a way to get through immigration, and that was because we had a 3-night stay in Doha. Now I won't show too much of the airport here. Suffice to say it is a nice airport. I'll show more of that when we do our second leg. But anyway, there we were, and we arrived in Doha. We were there in a beautiful time of the late afternoon, early evening, where the light was just beautiful, even though it was very hot when we were there, because of course it is summer at the moment still in Doha. And we had a lovely 3-night stay, as I mentioned, and we did quite a lot of stuff there. We packed quite a bit into those 3 days. You can see some of the things we did here in the footage. For a more comprehensive look at some of the stuff we did, you can have a look on our channel. We have made a few videos. There's still plenty more to do because gee, we did a lot. Now while we were there, we stayed at the park Hyatt Hotel in Doha. You can see a little bit of footage of it here. And we've already done a review on that, so if you were interested in a nice non-smoking hotel which you can stay at in the heart of Doha, well, head over to that episode. I'll put a link in the description and you can go and have a look at it. Suffice to say, it was a beautiful, amazing hotel. We've been very lucky. We've stayed at some nice hotels lately. But anyway, on to rating this first leg of our trip. Okay, to the lounge, 2 out of 5. So Qatar doesn't have a dedicated lounge and you have to use the shared priority lounge. It's just pretty ordinary, pretty average. You can of course get something to eat there and use the facilities, but Qatar really need a dedicated lounge at Frankfurt Airport. Moving on to the flight itself, I'd probably give it 4.5 out of 5. I think the only reason I'm really marking it down is because there was 2 delays, one boarding the plane, and then we stuck around on the tarmac probably for about 40 minutes before we left Frankfurt. No real explanations given. Generally speaking, the rest of the flight was okay though, so 4.5. Alright, turning to food. Well, I'm a huge fan of food on Qatar Airways. They always seem to do a great job, and I'm thankful this leg was no different. So, excellent job. I'm giving it 5 out of 5. I noticed the menu had changed slightly, so there's a few different options, so great job. Now, the seats and the lie flat beds, well, Qatar excels, and there's a reason why the Q suites are often raved about. And Qatar seem to have their finger still on the pulse of the airline industry, and they sort of know what constitutes a great business class experience. So I found the seats to be very user-friendly. They're very comfortable in a number of positions, and generally speaking, I find it easy to get a few hours sleep, at the very least, when I fly using the Q suite. So well done, Qatar. I'm giving it 5 out of 5. Now, I'm pleased to say the staff too were excellent on this leg of the flight, and I don't really have any complaints. Generally speaking, they did a great job, especially when we were delayed at takeoff, making sure we had drinks and so on. So staff, well done. I'm giving them 5 out of 5 as well. So overall, my wife and I would probably give this leg of the flight 4.5 out of 5. I think we can agree it would have been higher if only Qatar had a nice dedicated lounge in Frankfurt. Unfortunately, the lounge is very ordinary, but still a great effort from Qatar. So after our stay in Doha, that brings us back to the airport, and I have to say, absolutely loved this display. I think it was a display for Omega watches, and of course it was simulating sort of like a moon landing, but boy, it was a fabulous display. It must have cost a bit to set up. That was really great. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm just going to show you a little bit more of the airport. If you've never been to the Hamad International Airport, well, it's an award-winning airport. It's won Best Airport a number of times, and it's not hard to see why. Now, if you don't fly business class, if you're not lucky enough to go business class or have the use of lounge facilities, well, we did come across this great food market, which is, could be an option for you to go and get some food. They had lots of nice stalls there, and of course they also have a Harrods, which, we've been to before as well. We also stumbled across this Qatar shop where you can actually get souvenirs, obviously, from the airline itself, little model planes and so on, and they have a little first class seat set up in there. You can sit in and see. Here's me sitting in it there now. And one thing I will say is it is great to walk around these sorts of airports. So much like some other good airports like Singapore Airport or the Kuala Lumpur International Airport, there really is some nice shops and some interesting places you can go past. We even stumbled across this is the Swiss company which provides chocolates to Qatar Airlines, and I think it's pronounced Laderach chocolates from Switzerland. Now, before we get on and have a look at the lounges in the airport which we went to, we'll just show you a little bit again of this beautiful forest walk that you can go to. It's this lovely landscaped area which is right next to one of the lounges, and last time we went we didn't actually go upstairs, but this time we did, so I don't know if I mentioned it or not, but you can go up these steps here, and there's a nice walkway where you can actually walk up amongst the sort of like a rainforest walk, really, just a little miniature one, and you can look down, there's plants everywhere, and we highly recommend it. Now, the first lounge we went to is the Mourjan Business Lounge South. Now, we hadn't been to this lounge before. It's got these great little sleeping pods. There's my wife pretending to be asleep. And they have a great range of food, of course, there. Now, also something I failed to mention last time was you do have lockers here, so you can actually put your backpacks and things there while you wander around, which is very handy. Now, this lounge, apart from featuring that downstairs lake, which you just saw, or, indoor pond, whatever you want to call it, it also has this magnificent staircase with, a light in the middle. Now, here's a look at some of the food which is on offer. And as you'd expect, extremely high quality. There's a bar there if that's your thing and you want to have a drink of alcohol. And, we enjoyed a little bit of time there. Another feature is you can look out onto this part of the airport and the area there where some of the gates are, and we could see some of the aeroplanes going in and out. So that's also something very nice you can do while you're there. So we probably spent about an hour there. We had something to eat and drink. Very, very nice lounge. And like I said, I absolutely loved this feature here on this staircase. So it was absolutely exquisite. So very, very nicely done. And you can see some more here of the indoor pool there, or, pond, or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, we decided, because our gate was a lot closer to the garden lounge, we decided to actually go there. Now, if you wanted to go to this lounge, this is the entrance to it here. You actually have to show your pass, and then they'll allow you to go in the lift, and then, of course, you go up then to the lounge. Now, I won't show you as much of the lounge this time because I went into quite a lot of detail last time when I showed you this lounge. Suffice to say that it is probably the best lounge that Iris and I have been to. It's really extremely tastefully done, and there's plenty of room there. And I believe this garden area, which you can look at, I believe it's called the Orchard or just Orchard. So yeah, that's really a great focal point where you can go and walk around that area. So all the lounges at the airport there are excellent, and we've only been to 2, but the quality is of a very high standard. So whether you're flying business class, first class, if you're lucky enough to be doing that, you will definitely enjoy the lounges. Okay, that brings us on to our second leg of the flight, and I'm pleased to say there was no delays. So our second leg from Doha to Adelaide, we're looking at a flight time of 12 hours and 40 minutes with Qatar. So yeah, they're always slightly quicker on the return flight to Australia. So we're in exactly the same seats as when we flew to Europe, so those being seats 5E and F, which you'll see later fold out into that double bed configuration, which, if you want to have that with your partner, it's a great idea. And there is a second section of business class seats, but I reckon they should get rid of them and put a sky bar in this plane. That would be really great. Maybe next time we fly Qatar, we might go on the A380, which I think does have a sky bar like Emirates. Now we'll quickly look at the toilet facilities, which I do sometimes film. Did do a little bit of filming here, so you can see a little bit bigger than the normal toilets you get in economy or on domestic flights, and I even snuck a peek into the cockpit there as well. So this seat is the opposite to the sort of window seat that I had on the last flight. So the storage compartment there you can see with the water. So you've got that familiar setup of controls there as on the other plane. Now these are the noise cancelling headphones, which I have to say are excellent, which you can use obviously to listen to the music and movies, TV shows and so on. Now you get an amenities kit, both male and female. So you can see my wife here showing some of the stuff that you get with it. This is one of the little perks which you get when you fly business class, on a longer sort of long haul flight. And you often get a few things. So it's a nice little perk, I guess, for flying business class. So here's a quick look at the female one. Okay, and here's me having a look at my one as well. So yeah, it's just a nice little touch. You get a few things like, you definitely get some socks, a sleeping mask, and a few like little perfumes and things like that. You can use creams and so on. So yeah, just a nice little touch that you have sometimes when you fly business class on a long haul flight. Now, I didn't film as much on the food on this flight. I did do a little bit, which I'll show you. So, a very similar menu, and as usual, quite a good menu. Now, here's a look at the bed setup once it's all set up into that double bed configuration. So, and it really feels like a little, even like a little hotel room, I guess. Certainly a nice little suite. And very, very comfortable. And yet, as you can see here, the seat controls are really, really easy to use, and we both just relaxed and watched some movies. Now, before we did that, here's a little bit of the food which I filmed. I didn't film it all. There's the Arabic meze. There was a little entree which I had, and I also ordered, believe it or not, that's fish and chips, which I have to say was a little bit cold. And my wife had a vegetarian option there, and it was quite nice that you can see that the tables look very nice when they're all set up by the staff members. Now, if you haven't seen the movie June, or its sequel June 2, they're showing at the moment on the Qatar planes. Great movies. I'd already seen the first part, but I watched it again, and the sequel was just as good. Here's another look at the double bed configuration. So you can see it looks very, very nice. And, once you're seated in there, you can close the suite off there. You've got a light there you can have. And there you go. Nice and comfortable. So, yeah, very, very, very private. And just lovely to sit there and watch something. Now, here's the next morning, listening to a bit of Cyndi Lauper. I'm showing my age there. Great album, her first album. If you haven't listened to it, go and do it now. You can thank me later. And here we are, just about to arrive into Adelaide, and that's the conclusion of our flight. And of course, it was lovely to be back in Australia, and in particular Adelaide, which is a city I absolutely love. And, South Australia could become our future home. I will say it was very cold when we got back too. I mean, we just spent a few days obviously in Doha, which was very warm. And even though it was a cooler than normal summer in Germany, it was still warmer than what we found in Adelaide. The cold and the rain didn't stop us from going to the Adelaide Zoo, where we had a lovely time. And, we did a few other things in Adelaide. So if you haven't been to Adelaide too, get yourself there too. It's a lovely little city. Alright, anyway, that concludes our review. Now we have to get on and rate it. Okay, so the lounges in Doha, well, they're just superb. So we went to 2, and there's pretty much anything you could ever really want in a lounge you'll find there. So we always rate them very highly. So a clear 5 out of 5. Moving on to the flight, so 4 out of 5 for this one. Without sounding too whingy, just a minor complaint, but somebody behind me had an open water bottle which spilled, and it actually wet the floor area and my socks during the flight, and I have to say it was a little bit uncomfortable, and it did take the staff a little while to actually come and clean it up. So I felt that it was a little bit lacking there in that department. So that sort of took away a little bit of my enjoyment. But look, it's only a little thing, but still I'm marking down the flight just a little bit for that. On to food, and I'm just taking off a small mark, just half a mark, because the fish and chips I had were a little bit cold, and one of the other meals I had was also a little bit cold. I can't quite remember which. So I don't know if they were, whether they were a shorter staff member, but it wasn't just wasn't quite up to their normal high standards, but still very good, of course. So 4.5. Now the seats and the lie flat beds, well, they're of an extremely high class, and you'd be hard pressed to find another airline which really does the seats as good as Qatar. So, I have very few complaints. Like I said, I always manage to get a little bit of sleep on whatever leg I'm on. So it's a nice package, and that's a big reason why the Q suites have a high reputation, I think. If we move on to staff, we're giving it 4 out of 5. So I don't know if this is a pattern, but the longer leg on the way there was also a little bit less of a mark from me that I gave for staff. So I don't know if it's got anything to do with the length of this particular leg, if the staff aren't getting enough sleep. I don't know what it is. I just didn't feel like it was quite as professional and as good as the shorter leg of this flight. So yeah, I'm giving it a mark off. And a lot of that mark is just, I felt like they were just a little bit slow to attend to a few things, including the cleanup of the water, which was spilt by the guy behind me. So yeah, that's the mark for the staff, 4 out of 5, which brings us to the overall rating. So overall, we're giving it 4.5 out of 5. So, still an excellent flight, not quite perfect, but there is a reason why Qatar consistently rates, as I mentioned in my last review, and that's because their product is very good, and generally speaking their staff is well trained, and the food and lounges are generally of a high standard. And yeah, get yourselves a Qatar lounge in Frankfurt, and I think that would improve that leg of the flight immeasurably. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much for joining me on this, quite a long review. Appreciate you sticking around. Give us a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And we've got some great content coming up, including some business class flights, some domestic ones within Australia if you're interested in those. Alright, we'll see you very soon. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.